Ah, Spec Ops The Line. I still remember this game making waves on V back when it came out. It seemed people really liked how horrifying it was, allegedly. It took me much longer to finally decide to play it and see what all that fuss was about. I got the game, played it, found it extremely mid gameplay wise, but I remember liking the psychological horror part of it. The atmosphere was pretty decent and the reveal at the end was unexpected to me. Then after finishing it, I remember there were a bunch of video essays on the thing by notorious YouTubers. I watched one of them, and to be honest, I don't even know how to explain this, but I do regret doing so to this day. What I mean is, well, Spec Ops The Line is that kind of game that attempts to be a work of art. The hacking message and themes take priority over the gameplay. It's not a movie game, no, there's plenty of basic ass third-person cover shooter gameplay in it. And it's not explicitly a horror game where it's acceptable to sacrifice some of the gameplay quality in order to scare the player through atmosphere, jump scares, and everything else. Set pieces, yada yada. No, it was marketed as just another military shooter, the likes of Call of Duty or even the previous Spec Ops games. But it was all a deceitful setup. No, Spec Ops The Line is a game that goes for impact rather than fun or replayability or anything you'd expect from a game. If the Game Awards was a thing back in 2012, it would certainly have won the Games for Impact award. Yes, one of the most stupid awards, if not the most stupid, and the way it impacts the player is not much different from how modern woke games for impact attempt to. It's by shaming and guilt-tripping the player. When I finished the game, I thought it was a neat psychological experience. I thought, man, Captain Martin Walker, you really fucked up. I even had a dream once featuring him, and it looked like he wasn't having a good time in there either. I watched the doomed man lose it once again, but the crucial detail here, of which my own unconscious mind agrees with, is that the character is the character. It wasn't me in that dream suffering, I was just an observer. However, time and time again, the game attempts to blame the player for something. What terrible crime does the player commit when playing the game? Killing, between quotes, a bunch of innocent, between quotes, human-shaped pixels on the screen. Were you ever given a choice? Not really, except for a meta choice, but it's a very hypocritical one. Imagine you've made a game, you've worked on it for years, you, quote, would rather eat glass than do it again, end quote, only to then release a game that is already short enough, the campaign of only 6 hours give or take. You charge full price for it. Then you tell the player who bought it and paid this full price, not only that they're a bad person for playing your game, that they're an even worse person if they don't quit playing the game halfway through. Yes, the game you paid full price for and would get no refunds for your purchase. This is what Spec Ops The Line and its developers say to you, and it's why I call it a hypocritical anti-product. I'll summarize the story to freshen up your memory, and for those who never played it, spoilers ahead. You play as Captain Martin Walker of the US military's Delta Force. You're sent to Dubai because the city is basically in shambles. Massive sandstorms have cut off all communication with the outside world, sunk most of the city deep in sand, and threw the social order in complete chaos, and it also killed most of the population. A previous evacuation attempt by one Colonel John Conrad failed, and everybody in that convoy but him died. So Walker and his squad are sent there on a recon mission, of which he should have completed and left the city as soon as he located survivors. What happens instead is Walker decides to try and help the situation because Conrad is basically his idol and he just wants to be like him. So after a bunch of misunderstandings with the local survivors and rebels, the CIA agents present at the location, and Conrad's fractured 33rd Battalion, which result in a lot of shootouts and a lot of people dying, lots of friendly fire as well, pure chaos, Walker still decides to push forward instead of keeping himself within the mission parameters, all to try and save as many people as he can and meet Conrad in person to get the full picture. As many of you may know, this game has a specific moment about halfway through the game, which is a major turning point. At this certain moment, the game presents you a situation that is unsolvable. There's a massive army between Walker and the place he needs to head to. They're only a 3-man squad, so fighting all that would be committing suicide. Instead, they spot a mortar of white phosphorus next to him, and Walker decides that they'll have to use it. But just earlier, we saw the same chemical weapon being used on people and how horrific it is. So why are we using it now? Walker, or rather the game, gives you no choice here. You can't climb back up that balcony, make your way back and get the good ending because this option doesn't exist. There's no dialogue option or even a fake choice situation like the few ones the game presented so far. We just gotta do it. Unless you decide to stop consuming the product you paid full price for right then and there, turn off your console, and refuse to play the rest of the game ever again, missing out on the rest of the story, missing out on the most challenging segments of gameplay, also the most fun parts of it. Yeah, that's the hypocritical choice the developers give you here. If this game was freeware, which it is now since it was delisted from every storefront for some licenses expired and weren't renewed, so it's abandonware now. But anyway, if the game was free, then yeah, maybe the developers would have a case here. But it wasn't even free, dude. Normally, any sane person would keep going as it's a game, a product designed to be played, right? But it's after this point where the game begins to berate you for playing the game the only way it could be played. The devs are directly shaming you, the player, here through commentary from the characters, loading screens directly calling out the player, and the whole story just rubbing it in your face. The game's not shaming Martin Walker, the character. No, the lines such as "this is your fault," or "do you feel like a hero yet?" or some of the worst ones like "to kill for yourself is murder, to kill for your government is heroic, to kill for entertainment is harmless," and "the US military does not condone the killing of unarmed combatants, but none of this is real, so why should you care?" It's these lines that show the developers are attempting to use shock value and shame to subdue the player into their frame of thinking. What any self-respecting, sane player should do with this is point and ask, "Yeah, you have a point, why should I care?" It is a fact that none of this is real. It is a fact that this game is not going to change anything about the military-industrial complex. Gaming is entertainment. Shooting pixels on a screen is not killing, no matter how many times the game tries to use that word repeatedly. So why are the developers attempting to judge the player as if the player just killed a bunch of real people? If anything, it's just as likely that the effect from equating killing virtual NPCs in a video game to killing real soldiers instead devalues the significance of the latter. Actually, that's the most likely effect. I'll try to steelman the argument the game's trying to make here. I'd like to believe, after all, that the developers of this game are not insane enough to equate killing NPCs in a video game to killing real people. So the most charitable interpretation I can think of is that the devs were trying to say that if you did what you did in this game, then that means if you were ever in a situation like Walker was in real life, you'd do the same thing he did. But this is also completely retarded. Comparing a situation where there is no agency whatsoever, where everything plays out like the script tells it to, it's all predetermined and there are in fact no possible choices, creativity, or any sort of freedom you'd have in a real life situation. That's ridiculous. Furthermore, implying gamers, the target audience of this product, would be capable of such things, people who haven't even been in the military, who in many cases haven't ever even shot a gun or seen blood IRL before, would simply be capable of mass murder given the place and occasion is... I think you get the message by now. And why is Walker viewed as such a villain anyway? For the first half of the game, every single encounter is a misunderstanding where the other party shoots at Walker's first and refuses to listen to reason. Then there's the white phosphorus scene, which was a huge mistake and probably the only wrong thing he did. He was not evil, he regretted it so much that his mind instantly shattered. And then after this point, he goes insane. Clinically insane. So what even is the point in judging him morally and the player who experiences the world through this insane man's eyes on what they do after that point? And what about the hypocritical developers? Their blame should be even greater because they chose with all the free will real life gave them, and without being the victims of deliberate misdirection they themselves used on the players. They still chose to model a bunch of innocent women and children dying horribly by melting alive. Characters they spent more time developing and writing than what the player spends with them, which invariably means that they have a stronger attachment to them than the player does. does. But no, they're the judges here. They can't be the ones judged by the same standards. No, bunch of hypocrites. This disingenuous frame the devs intend for you to fall for also connects to another dumb point the game tries to pass on to you. In the same preachy way as always, Spec Ops The Line attempts to establish some causal link between video game violence and real life violence. Yes, the same tired point they use on the news every time a schmass, schmooting, or high-profile crime involving firearms happened. And it's so on the nose. I mean, look at what the radio man, the most annoying character, says.
Ah, jeez. Where's all this violence coming from, man? Is it the video games? I bet it's the video games.
Yes, the most annoying millennial redditor coded also displays how on the nose and completely lacking in subtlety and taste this game is.
Hey guys! like that's a real gun. Come on. What?
It's a signal bouncing off the storm wall.
Hey now. Check out the Whiz Kid. Oh, well, you know. You said it, not me.
So I'll make this clear. There is no causal relationship between playing violent video games and emulating that violence in real life. There are other causes, like being raised by a single mother, having low IQ, and having high levels of melanin, neglect, pre-existing mental issues, etc. A tiny slice of the pie that is the gaming population. Maybe if you have severe autism or actual schizophrenia, playing a war game could make you obsessed with wanting to join the military. But then again, watching a boxing match could also get you fixated on hitting people. So the issue is mental. It has nothing to do with any specific type of game. This entire point is retarded. It's always been. Everyone points and laughs at it, except when it's Spec Ops The Line making it for some reason. Because the dumb fucks who love shock value like to excuse it because they think the game's being bold. It's been proven that you can tape a banana to a museum wall and the cattle will view it as high art. You can make people like anything as long as you frame it a certain way. And since these people play like 5 video games in their entire lives and love to LARP their into the hobby, they're not used to it. That's all there is to it. The result? The game genuinely traumatized some people. I'm not kidding. I've seen people in the comment section of some of these video essays claiming this game ruined their lives, that they were traumatized, they couldn't stop thinking about it and were losing sleep. So I guess I gotta give it to Spec Ops. It at least sent some weirdos to the psych ward. And once again, the game that was supposed to warn people as sort of a protest against violent video games and the imaginary effect they think they have on people, instead probably mind broke more people than every Call of Duty game combined. If you want to change the world, then leading by example is infinitely more valuable than creating some pretentious, patronizing, shocking piece of media. Wow guys, we're going to protest violent video games and war by making a violent video game about war. It's the same thing as the iPhone communists claiming that doing what they preach would have no effect. No, it's everyone but them first that needs to lose all their property. Then maybe, just maybe, perhaps, possibly, probably not, they will start socializing their own property. Yeah, we know that's never gonna happen. Feeling bad because of this, feeling shocked or even traumatized is some of the most mentally raped behavior anyone could ever have. It's falling completely into a fallacious frame of mind developers insidiously prepared for you.
Nah.
It is just a game. This game being as impactful as it was says more about the state of the modern normie soy-lennial than anything else. But I think people are hypocritical about this as well. Watch the normies who praise this game. Just how many of them do you think are going to play GTA 6? A game where you can do far more horrible things to human-looking NPCs than in Spec Ops, with far more player choice, which would make it an even worse crime than bombarding those guys with white phosphorus, where you had no legitimate choice on the matter. Watch how many of them will completely lose their minds in delight as they commit crimes in that video game. But it's fine, because unlike in Spec Ops, a game which tells you patronizingly and arrogantly how to feel, the midwit, the lowest common denominator, won't be told to feel bad when playing GTA 6, so they won't feel bad. Which is precisely why a lot of people who have woken up to all the manipulation in media often side with the villains, because people with a brain don't appreciate being preached at by people who hate them. So I'm a bad person if I play your stupid game you charge full price for? Fine, then I'm a bad person. What are you gonna do about it? Cry on Twitter or Blue Sky? In the game, I killed a shit ton of NPCs in a shithole in the Middle East. That's pretty cool, dude. I felt like a badass doing it. Hell, I did it again for the 3rd time or 4th time just to record footage of it for this video. And as janky, generic, and simple the gameplay was, I still had a good time. So now that you know this, Jaeger, and also you, pretentious video essayists, bedroom psychologists, and Twitter virtue signalers, you can put me in your meaningless naughty boy list. I don't care. You don't believe in God. You lie to yourself telling you have a moral framework, but it's based in dust and dirt. So think whatever you like. It doesn't matter if I feel bad if I run over something as small as a toad with my bike and go to bed ruminating it. No, the fact I play violent video games and shoot lifeless, soulless pixels on a screen, that has completely destroyed my capacity for empathy. I'm now a psychopath even, for sure, believe it. There you go. Happy? You can scream and cry and be indignant as much as you want now, sisters. There's also the anti-American point of view, but that much is so obvious it requires no further analysis. The game is there to make you feel bad about yourself, to make you feel guilt over something you've never done through guilt by association. If you're American, you should feel bad. If you've been in the military, you should feel bad. If you play video games with blood in them, you should feel bad. If you own guns, even as a collector, you should feel bad. Why? I don't know. There's never an actual argument made by these pretentious pieces of media. They're all appeals to emotion. They make flimsy, correlational or coincidental associations between X bad thing and Y thing. Therefore, Y thing is also bad. Nuance flies out the window. Case by case scenarios never even considered. It's completely and utterly moronic. That's the most blatant tell of something being propaganda, pure and simple. The game is not entirely shit in my opinion even. The psychological horror part of it, like I said, is fine. The little details like Conrad's face appearing and disappearing in billboards, the tree appearing dead when you turn around to look at it, all the hallucinations, that part of the game I enjoyed. Some of the visuals were spooky, like these kids on the wall. The visuals when Walker is hallucinating and the Burj Khalifa in the distance were cool. The music is pretty good, even though it's used in a satirical way to make fun of the military and how it's often portrayed together with rock music. I'll make sure to use it in this video if it's not copyrighted. And the plot is interesting enough. It kept my attention the first time I played it. It sparked curiosity pretty well, as long as you're able to dissociate from a video game like any sane person could. But that's where my praise ends, because the gameplay is pretty simplistic. The AI is either completely retarded or it feels like it has aimbot turned on, and I know the gameplay being like this is intentional. I don't care. And there's plenty of bullshit glitches and soft locks.
What a great game!
And the narrative around it, its developers and its most avid glazers are a bit cringe, you know, just a little bit. The thing with Walker is that he's a written character. He's not an RPG character, a blank slate for the player to insert himself in. He's a pre-established character with his own voice lines, personality, ideology, philosophy, behaviors, everything. So when I played Spec Ops The Line, as I'm not severely mentally ill, I knew naturally to dissociate enough from the character I was playing as. And it's not like you have to constantly remember to suspend disbelief. No, it's just a matter of not being completely insane. You are not Captain Martin Walker, and most people likely wouldn't do what he did in the same situation. You're merely playing a video game with no player choice whatsoever, dude. If anything, I feel bad for Walker, for his character was created by some propagandists for the sole purpose of suffering through one of the worst things a man can go through. The turning point of one's life, a moment that means nothing will ever be the same again and there's no way to go back until the day of your death. And although it's a moment that couldn't have been avoided in this case, it's the type of turning point that so many people go through in their lives. And what makes it worse is that in real life, a lot of those could have been avoided. In the case of Walker, it couldn't. It was either that or he would be eternally stuck on that balcony in that hellhole of a city because I turned the game off selfishly. Doesn't sound like much of a good ending to me either, dude. It's even more horrifying when I think about it. And if you're that much of a cuck who would be fine with turning off the video game halfway through, not getting your money back, and then praising the developers and the game as being some sort of visionary thing, well, it's over for you. Good luck surviving and tying your shoelaces without tripping and hitting your head and dying. And here's the truth about this game. As much as it tries to be shocking, it really isn't. There have been far worse things on video game store shelves. If the game really wanted to scare away the player, it's really far from being scary, shocking, or haunting enough. Unless it falls in the hands of a true homosexual. The NPCs, they don't act convincing enough. The blood and gore are comical. The preachy nature of the game constantly breaks immersion. Despite as much as they say you're supposed to turn the game off, they really needed the money, dude.
I need that money. I really do. I need that money to pay my bills.
Anything truly shocking would never have made it in. And with that, I wrap up this ranting video. I was just sick of all the pretentiousness in the discourse surrounding this game. Spec Ops The Line is not a masterpiece. You're just easy to manipulate.
Ha! You're easy.
It is what it is. As soon as I knew people unironically thought you should have stopped playing the game, bro, was ever a reasonable stance to have, the game's image was permanently tainted. I'm somehow still able to enjoy it, but that nagging thought is always in the back of my mind now when I play it. After I made the last video, some people in the comments let me know what the director of Obsession intended for that movie to say. To me, what an author intends to say and what the product effectively says are two distinct things. Elite Squad's media-literate Redditor interpretation, the supposedly correct interpretation, was that the police were evil brutalizers of the poor, innocent victims of society that were the drug cartels of Rio de Janeiro. What did people take from those movies effectively? That the police were badass and the criminals were scum and they deserved all that was done to them. Based. Then the author went to make a sequel because he could not live with the fact people simply took his god-awful intended interpretation, threw it in the toilet and flushed it down. The same exact thing happened with the Joker movie and its sequel. These pre-approved interpretations, often coming out of the director's own mouth, so often fail to land. It's completely fair to misinterpret the product entirely and come up with an even better takeaway than what the author intended. It's the same type of people who like it when a bunch of faggots ship heterosexual male characters in media as gay couples who are now demanding you interpret things exactly the way they want. It's very easy to ignore such freaks. When you hear it from the mouth of the author, however, the nagging thought is much harder to ignore, all because pretentious auteurs could not keep their mouths shut. Such is the case with Spec Ops The Line. Pretty good atmosphere, creepy, unnerving visuals, a lot of this stuff I like, but I'll never take this game seriously again like I did when I first played it and before I read about it and listened to video essayists and wasn't exposed to the correct, quote-unquote, Reddit-approved interpretation. So, big shout-outs to the members. Thanks for the support, fellas. We're closing in on 10k subs, so thanks a lot for that too. I really appreciate it. But yeah, take care, chuds. Enjoy the weekend, and I'll see you later.